What if you could sit down once a week with a colleague who's a flat-out warrior? This colleague wasn't a stud in dental school. He struggled. He returned to practice in his hometown, an area once labeled by USA Today as the second worst place to live economically in the United States. And this very same colleague went on to establish an historically successful general practice known worldwide. What if you knew someone that wanted to take you by the hand and show you everything you need to know, from treatment planning to leadership, to maximizing your journey in dentistry or just life? You ready to be inspired? Welcome to the Lionhearted.
Hi everyone, Dr. Steve Rasner back here again. If you're watching me, yes, I have the exact same shirt I had on last week because it's not last week, it's the same night. I'm doing two podcasts. I'm doing two because I like the subject so much, I want to keep going while it's in my brains. So you ready for this? Okay. I mentioned, if you skipped last week's podcast, that more of you downloaded the podcast entitled Why Your Income Isn't What You Want It to Be, more than any other podcast I'd ever done. And last week, I revisited that. And if I really did have you next to me, and I had the chance to be your coach, which is what this is trying to be virtually, okay? Oh, one more thing before I forget. I am really strongly considering, I mean this, so if you're watching tonight, I don't know, I need more than one or two feedbacks on this. And I guess I'll find out if I do it. I'm really thinking in 2023 having the live Lionhearted 2-day, putting it all together with yours truly, part of my staff, the famous Michelle, who's my new patient coordinator, my financial coordinator, and we could have breakout rooms for your key team members that you would bring. I would probably have it in Philadelphia. So those of you who even feel the slight interest in doing so could come even far away. I usually do things very first class, so I'd have to find the correct venue for you. I did this, by the way, 20 years ago. I put on 4 programs across the United States. I did it in Atlanta, Chicago, San Diego, and Dallas. I don't think I'm doing that this time. And I might have a joint speaker. They don't even know I'm thinking of them. But I'm thinking of Strupp or Brum. So there's a clinical aspect to it as well. Although I don't know if I can afford those guys. They're pretty damn good. I don't know if you can handle all that information in 2 days. Anyway, give me your thoughts. I think it'd be awesome. It was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, Bill Strupp and I did a 2-day thing, and I forget where. Might have been Atlanta. Oh, I also did Las Vegas. Really hard. I made no money. Big crowds. I mean, big. But marketing was harder in 2005 than it would be today because of social media. Okay, back to my thing. So if I was coaching you, more than you just listening to me on the way to work this morning, I would nudge you to tell me what you want. Okay? Tell me what wouldn't all of us, seriously, wouldn't it be perfect? Number one, if you're working more than 4 days in this profession, you're absolutely working too much. I'm an advocate of the 4-day work week for dentists, even in the beginning. It's just too hard. It's absolutely too hard. You and I chose a profession that is geared to do what we have to do. We got to go through this little orifice called the mouth. And on top of that, there's really vulnerable things behind the lips, like the tongue, and people are very vascular, and there's not a lot of room for error, and people are fearful from generations of, I guess, not pain-free dentistry. There, I said it. And then today, you think everybody listens to the Lionhearted and does all the things that you guys do? Really? Or do you think, honestly, that some people are in to make as much as they can and get out as quick as they can? I know and knew a lot of dental minds like that. Let me get in, work my butt off, 12-hour days, and get out of this godforsaken profession. I never thought like that. I always thought legacy. Let me be the very best I can possibly be and make myself, my family, my community, those who came to me, proud that they went to me. There's so many fine dentists in our industry. You can only be the best version of yourself, but are you doing that? Are you? I would think most of you aren't. I would think most of you undertrain or get your stuff online, because you couldn't do that when I began my intense training. Even now, I don't do a lot of online training. I actually like the thing of colloquy and the back and forth and live conversations with my colleagues I get to meet. And I know some of you don't even like that. I literally have had, look, we all have different personalities, right? And I can only cover so many things in a weekly podcast in 30 minutes that doesn't universally apply. Some of you I absolutely know are introverted, and it's even the reason you don't take some courses. And it's the reason you struggle in that moment of truth called case presentation. So again, I thought this was such an important topic that this is the third time I've covered it. Why you don't have the income you want. Well, I think what you really want is financial freedom. Who doesn't want that? You shouldn't be embarrassed to want financial freedom. What's financial freedom? I think it's working when you want to work and not working when you don't want to work because you can. Now, most people that arrived at that level of their life have some form of passive income or have part of their wealth because they were able to live vigilantly close to the vest for maybe the first 10, 15 years of their career and acquire assets, whether it's stock, real estate, whatever it is. This is the truth. I guess the good news is the host of this show, which is me, didn't even do that and still came out okay. But don't do what I did. Do what I've done for the last 15 years, but not the first 25. Practice-wise, you should. Just not privately, spending-wise. You shouldn't. You shouldn't overspend. It's just not worth it. It's not worth making the banks or whoever charges you interest. That's not real wealth. But wouldn't it be good to work 3 days a week? I have had some years, not many, where I did that, deliberately did that. I think that would be nirvana. Having enough income from 3 days, that should be a goal. Because I'm speaking to you tonight. This wasn't the focus of my podcast. And I am in agony. And I've been in agony for a year with my back. And most people I know in dentistry, not all, have some kind of physical deterioration. And it's a tough profession, man. But in my book, I would have done it again. It's a profession that affords you the opportunity to amazingly increase your skill sets, which amazingly impacts your ability to produce and make really good income if you keep your overhead reasonable. So I would ask you first, I mean, to me, so many of you reacted to that podcast. The answer is simple. Why don't I have the income I want? Well, you might not have the skill set. You just gotta come with it and start taking the courses to deliver the skill set. Now, what is that? A lot of you turn to sleep apnea. I wouldn't do that. I know it's a giant piece right now of our industry. I never had to get involved with that or with Botox. And I met a guy in Africa from Manhattan. His whole entire practice is injecting people with Botox and fillers. My hat's off to him because he seemed happy. But at the end of the day, right? Or if you're really happy, then keep doing what you're doing. But that doesn't feel very fulfilling to me, even if it was profitable. I mean, I'm not a dentist and didn't earn this degree to do just that, or really do it at all, because I don't. I have had a comprehensive care approach, which you're probably sick of me saying that complex of words, for as long as I can remember. I've done comprehensive exams. It's not that, it doesn't take that long. Go back, if this is your first time with me, to my very early podcast, which you should be able to find a series over the last couple of years of different times I went into speaking about what your case presentation approach should be. Because it's everything. It's how you spend your days. And think about it for a minute. That patient walks in, a person you've likely never met before. The same person that if they're over the age of 20 or 30, certainly most of them are that come to me, has had a lifetime experience of going to a dentist that doesn't have a comprehensive care approach and likely accepts their insurance. And then put that same guy, which is me, that does that, in a community that is downtrodden economically. How could that work? Well, it could work by, number one, being palpably different. Are you palpably different or not? I mean, it's your skill set. Do you give a painless injection? I did a podcast on it. That's 2 needles, special topical. Write to me, drrasner at AOL.com. It is a special topical you put on. 2 needles every single time I anesthetize a patient. The first is 4% Citnest, which has a neutral pH, followed by my anesthetic of choice, which for me is almost always Septicane, also known as Articaine. Something as detailed as that, I can just rattle off to you as part of the reason for a very long run of success for me. So that's palpably different to a patient. I built a legion of followers just because they said that's the first time my shot never hurt. Do you like getting shots? Because I don't. And then, do you even know a good dental lab? Or do you just use the lab that you're used to for everything, including the interior work? Have you ever checked that out? I would say if the bulk of your courses are taken in front of your computer that it's a very good chance you wouldn't even know a top 20 dental lab in the industry. You wouldn't even know the difference in the type of work that you can deliver. I found that out, guys, through CE. It's truthful. I wouldn't have known about Valley Dental Lab in Stillwater, Minnesota. At one time in my career, Da Vinci out in California, that was earlier. There are 20, I can't think of the name, they're called Oral, shame on me. It's a circle of labs that started years ago around a guy named Willie Geller. And they practice at a very different level. The labs do. And their knowledge base is at a very high level. Lionhearted dentists use those kind of labs, whether it's for that, for implant dentistry. You ever hear of Deutsch out in Arizona? DEU, he's going to kill me. Arian, Deutsch, removable, crown and bridge. He does a very high level removable and fixed prosthetics around implants. I mean, trust me, as a dentist, as a DMD, it's humbling to talk to those guys. But I'm going just free stream with you tonight when we talk. So why aren't you at the level you're at? And I reached a level that I was very happy with. Not number one, because I had a skill set. And I fell into things as I took the courses. I didn't know about those labs. Oral design. That's the name of these labs. They're certified as oral design labs. You can Google it. There's many of them. There's not one. Some of them, most of them, you have to be recommended by somebody for them to take your work. But it just depends what you want as a measure of your success. And good work, a palpable difference between you and other places that people in your community can receive their dental care, is what you're going for. Not everybody can afford the spa-like atmosphere that one of my offices very much embraces. I wouldn't call it audaciously decorated, but it's very zen. It's the lighting's on purpose. And my atmosphere that I embrace for my staff to nurture is zen. Okay? I don't want loud, cackling noise out of the front desk reception. It's a beautiful thing when your efforts are realized in front of your eyes, but it comes with a sacrifice of really a lot of planning. That's the hardest thing I think a lot of my colleagues have. You hear me, and you've heard others give you ideas that you like, but you go back tomorrow to your office and you see those 16 to 20 patients, and without systems, without the time to make changes, particularly insurance, and it becomes comfortable for you. This is why you don't have the income that you want. So are you going to change? We're already into the 9th month of 2022. Every year now, I find myself telling you, we're already into fall. We're already in the 9th, 10th month. What are you waiting for? You are capable of change. I don't care what your age is. Well, I do care if you're... Most of you have time to change. If you're 50, you have time to change. You do. maybe even 60, to fulfill a career that the only reason, in my opinion, Steve Rasner's opinion, that is not fulfilling for you is because you haven't given it enough of your soul. I mean that. You wanted it, not bad enough. Why won't you at least try it? Try it for a year. CE. Change the atmosphere of your practice. Pick up a skill immediately. I've always told you, I told you last week, probably every week, get your oral sedation permit. It's an immediate return. Immediate. You want to hear something sad? It probably doesn't matter if you're an average dentist. That doesn't take a lot of CE. If you have a permit to sedate in your country, your province, or the United States, your practice will explode because it's such a beneficial aspect of your practice that absolutely flat out works every time. 26 years of my cocktail, Atarax, Benadryl, Triazolam, nitrous oxide. Write to Dr. Rasner at AOL.com. I'll send you the full protocol. Do you hear me? Where do you get this? Where else can you get it so quick? I tell you, almost every week. So you don't have it because of your own fault. I'm sorry. Some of you, I'm sure, have stories, bad health, a loved one's bad health, that have sidetracked you, and that's a legitimate reason. But for not most of you. Most of you have not given it enough. And when you do, you have to balance with your family life. You can't just go out and take a course every weekend. You don't need to do that. You need to plan and treatment plan your year productively with CE. I can help you. I redid my CE recommendations for you. I hadn't touched them in 3 years. I just redid them a month ago. I even have the phone numbers, I think, of the places I think you should call. You don't have the income you want because you haven't put in enough work and you haven't done. Now, if you have put the work in and you've taken all the CE, well, have you taken those changes back to your office? And have you encouraged the evolution of your staff? Can't just be you. Yeah, that's a lot to ask of you. So, the payoff is huge, man. The payoff is huge. Do you know that I have not gone in on a weekend in 25 years. And I do surgery heavily for 25 years. Do you know why? Because I took the time to teach and empower key people, and I've been fortunate too, because I've had that one person for many years who's gifted on the phone and knows that most things can wait till Monday, with the exception of scripts to be called in, etc. I'm serious. That's a beautiful existence. I can put out 4 days a week. My next goal is 3 days a week, and because it does get harder. Trust me. In your 60s, it gets harder. So are your skill sets unique enough? Have you really looked at yourself, and do you trust what you're projecting through case presentations? Do you even have a protocol or a model that you want your case presentation to look like? I've given you mine so many times, I don't want to waste tonight's podcast doing it. Go back or write to me. I have it written down. And then lastly, I said something really funny about a month ago. I said, I'm trying to look for it. When I talked about insurance, I talked about that you're crazy between the forehead, like Granny from the Beverly Hills used to say. You're crazy in the forehead. If you really stop and think about what you are doing to your practice by allowing insurance to run it, it makes you weak. It does. I took insurance, guys. Look, I did. So if you're taking it, I was in that club too. But once you stop, like so many Lionhearted dentists have, you just can't believe how the money sticks. And it shouldn't shock you because you're getting 100% or close to it of the revenues you produce instead of 70% or 60%. Of course it sticks. Of course you don't have to work as hard. It takes courage. It takes a lot of other things to get that in motion. But I've done it. It'd be one thing if I was talking to you from Dallas, Chicago, NYC, or some major city. I've done it in a very economically challenged suburb that was once ranked as the second worst place to live in the United States. That's where I did it. And it has not changed. If anything, it's worse over the 42 years I've been there. What I just said, I've done. I didn't do it for 42 years, to be fair to you. But I've done it for many, many years. And it is scary. Insurance companies will send you threatening suggestions that if you leave us, I'll tell you right now, it's Delta. Probably others do it too. And you come back, we're going to make it hard for you. You're going to have to accept all of our plans. That's real collaboration, isn't it? With a company you've worked for the last 10 years, whatever it was. And now you don't want to give up 30, 40% of your revenues. And they're going to punish you by trying. You know what Steve Rasner's thinking? Blank them. If you come to my course in person in 2023, I won't say blank. Anyway, guys, the last thing is, the last reason you don't have the income you want is you don't believe in yourself enough. And taking CE and becoming a better clinician, and then look, if you looked at my library in my house, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of books on leadership. I was the king of my preschool, that means I was 4 years old, May Day class. May Day, May 1st. So I don't want to sound like a jerk, but maybe I had early skills in leadership. And I was a little thing, but there's a video of me being the king of May Day. I don't even know that was a thing. And it kind of carried on in my life. But you can work on leadership. There's so much abundant views on how to do that, how to be a fair employer, a great employer, a motivator. I'll give you the book titles so you don't waste your time. I mean, I remember every CE trip I was on, I was reading a book on non-dental things, but leadership and on motivation. And I was not horrible to begin with. Come on, guys. I want you to be successful. No agenda. I'd love to meet you in person at one of my Lionhearted symposiums I'm working on, or one of my surgical courses. But if I never meet you, and I hear you've done well based on these principles that absolutely work, nothing can make me happier. Have a good week. Give me some feedback. See you next week on The Lionhearted.